I see the Honourable Member from Calgary-Shaw and the Minister of Children's Services standing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is an honour to rise in the House this evening and stand before you and my colleagues as a new member of this Assembly in this 30th Legislature of Alberta, and to have the opportunity to respond to this government's plan as outlined by Her Honour, the Lieutenant Governor, in the speech from the throne. Mr. Speaker, the last 7 weeks since the election on April 16th have been nothing short of extraordinary. Stepping into this building and into this chamber for the first time was absolutely incredible. Being sworn in alongside my colleagues, officially taking my seat in this Assembly on behalf of the people of Calgary-Shaw, and the next day hearing Her Honour deliver the speech from the throne. There was something about that moment where the promises we made during the campaign became more than a platform. It was our commitment being shared through the Queen's representative in our province that we as a government are here to do what we said we would do. And having been given the opportunity to come to work every day in this truly beautiful and storied building, experiencing the grandeur and the ceremony of the opening of a new legislative assembly, well, Mr. Speaker, I am grateful for this privilege. It's also surreal, Mr. Speaker, because while I had dreams and a passion for public service, I really didn't expect them to lead me here. But Mr. Speaker, most importantly, and I think you and all other members here today can relate, that I am where I am today in part because of where I've come from. Growing up in small town Saskatchewan taught me many of the lessons that led me to this place. Hard work, humility, honesty, good humor, and Mr. Speaker, service. Service to your neighbors and to your community, service to something larger than yourself. These are the values I learned growing up. These are the values that led me to seek elected office, and they are the values that will continue to guide me for as long as I have the honor to sit as a member of the Legislative Assembly. And Mr. Speaker, like any good prairie kid, I know that springtime is the most important season. When the snow finally melts and seeding and calving are underway, when hope and optimism abound, and we can see the promise of renewal unfolding around us. Mr. Speaker, that was the theme of this throne speech, and in many ways it was the theme of our spring election, renewal. Albertans clearly wanted change. Albertans wanted a government that would stand up and advocate for the things that matter to them, for economic growth, for job creation, for real support for our energy sector, and they wanted a government that would take Alberta back to its rightful place as a leader in Confederation. And Mr. Speaker, Albertans made their choice very clear. They chose renewal. They chose a positive vision set out in a platform of thoughtful and fully costed policies, policies that will benefit families, that will maintain and enhance public services, policies that will jumpstart our economy. And Mr. Speaker, after 4 years of punishing tax increases on families and job creators, reckless overspending, deficit budgets from an NDP government that increased our provincial debt, Albertans chose a new government that will return to fiscal management, get our financial house in order, and ensure that Alberta will be an appealing place, the best place, to invest, to start a business, to raise a family, to build a life. Mr. Speaker, that is the Alberta advantage. It's a recognition that the incredible natural resources we are blessed with, coupled with the ingenuity and entrepreneurial spirit of her people, make Alberta a truly special place, a place where everyone has the opportunity to succeed. It's the reason my husband and I chose to move here. Like so many people from across Canada and around the world, we made a conscious choice to become Calgarians and to become Albertans, to raise our family in a place with amazing opportunity and potential. But here's the unfortunate thing, Mr. Speaker. There is a sad reality that those of us who grew up in Saskatchewan are all too familiar with, and it was a sad reality that Albertans experienced these past 4 years. Poor government policy has the ability to hamper opportunity and potential, dampen that entrepreneurial spirit, stunt economic growth, job loss, people leaving this province, and then a vicious cycle sets in where governments, usually NDP governments, increase taxes, run deficits in order to maintain public services. And worst of all, Mr. Speaker, we began to lose hope and that optimism for the future. But it doesn't have to be that way. And my experience working for a pro-growth, pro-free enterprise government in another province showed me just that. Under a Conservative government, Saskatchewan went from the place to be from to the place to be. And so when I saw that a new, united, compassionate, conservative movement in Alberta was coming together under strong and experienced leadership, I chose to get involved. And then, a little over a year ago, Mr. Speaker, when I saw that this United Conservative Party could present an alternative vision for our province, a vision for renewal, one that would get Alberta back on track, I chose to run to represent the people of Calgary-Shaw. Every day since then has been a new adventure, not always easy, Mr. Speaker, but always rewarding. I am honored to represent the people and the families of Calgary-Shaw in this chamber, no matter how they voted, and it is on their behalf that I will carry out my work in the months and years ahead. I want to mention, Mr. Speaker, that the boundaries have changed quite a bit since Calgary-Shaw was first created, and since this is my maiden speech in this Assembly, I do want to honour some of the members who came before me, those such as Jim Dinning and Cindy Adey, who advocated tirelessly for their constituents and who certainly know the importance of fiscal responsibility and the difficult decisions needed to get there. Calgary-Shaw includes Shaughnessy, Somerset, Silverado, Chaparral, Walden, Legacy, as well as new developments of Yorkville and Belmont. And I want to thank two very special constituents, Tasha Schindel and Karen Henderson, for leading a campaign that allowed me to meet with and hear from people in each of these South Calgary communities. It is a diverse riding with seniors, professionals, many young families, working families, families who rely on the energy industry to make their living, many from all over the world with different backgrounds, cultures, and faiths, and many of whom are Albertans by choice. Every single day, I heard it over and over. We need to get the economy growing. We need jobs. We need to provide opportunities for people to provide for their families. We need a government that will support our oil and gas sector and a government that will unequivocally and relentlessly fight to get pipelines built in this country. But, Mr. Speaker, the constituents of Calgary-Shaw were not just concerned about the economy. They shared with me their concerns about the need for strong public services and infrastructure, that despite all the rhetoric, many did not believe that the former government made things better for students or patients or frontline workers. Again and again, I would hear concerns about the ideological approach to education, and Mr. Speaker, I heard genuine concerns at the doors about why healthcare spending was increasing, but that it was making no difference for patients. In fact, spending was going up, and so too was the time it took to access important services. Those are challenging questions, Mr. Speaker, and I know that the solutions are not simple. They require innovation, new perspectives, and frankly, Mr. Speaker, in some cases, just some common sense. But hearing these questions and concerns every day drove home for me to the gravity, the weight, and the responsibility of this role. It is a great honor to serve my constituents in this Assembly, but also a solemn obligation, and one that I do not take lightly. As I said at the beginning, Mr. Speaker, I will draw on the lessons I learned growing up to guide me. I draw both strength and inspiration from my family. I was fortunate to have parents who encouraged me, my brother, sister, and I, to be independent, to ask questions, to pursue knowledge in all of its forms, to do better, to be better, and to help those who need it most, to seek the truth wherever it might lead, and that taking responsibility for my actions matters. And Mr. Speaker, my grandparents on all sides believed in community involvement, but my grandma specifically would often remind me of how hard women fought to have a voice at the table, and that we owe it to those who came before us to not just use that voice, but use that voice for positive change and to make things better for those who will come after we're gone. Mr. Speaker, in acknowledging those who have helped me get here today, I have to save my greatest thanks for my husband, Cole. I am so fortunate to have a partner in this life who shares a passion for politics, is one of the smartest people I know, and who is so incredibly supportive. Sometimes his support comes in a pretty straightforward manner. When I was wrestling with the decision about whether or not to pursue this path, I'd gone over it and over it and over it. And finally, he said I either needed to run or just stop talking about it. So I am very thankful for his encouragement, and in many ways, his service and sacrifice is far greater than my own. And Mr. Speaker, that brings me to my children, William and Lauren. My son has been telling people that since his mom won the collection, she now works at the castle in Edmonton. So while they don't yet know the sacrifice they are making for this province, they are absolutely the reason that I'm here today. And people certainly have asked, how will I do it? How will I be an MLA, minister in cabinet, and have 2 young children? But here's the plain truth, Mr. Speaker. I'm a working mom. I've always been a working mom, and like hundreds of thousands of other working parents in Alberta, it requires a lot of effort, a lot of help, and is not always an easy balance. In that, I thank my colleagues for their ongoing support and confidence in me. But ultimately, I didn't decide to seek elected office in spite of having 2 young children. I did it for my children. I do this work for my children. I hope to instill in them the importance of serving others, that if you see an opportunity and a need and you have something to offer, that you ought to contribute. I know that nothing worthwhile comes without hard work and sacrifice, and I know my colleagues on both sides of this House will agree that there is absolutely no more important work we will do here than we do in an effort to leave things better for our children and all future generations. So finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to briefly thank and recognize a few of the leaders who I've had the privilege to know and to work with, and who are true examples of servant leadership. First and foremost, our current Premier. The leader of our party and the person whose unwavering vision for a united Conservative movement is a key reason I chose to run for office. His work ethic is well known and unmatched. His efforts to reach out to diverse communities and grow our party and unite our province is unrivaled. He is someone who has offered me and all members of our team guidance and encouragement as we embark on this journey as a new government. He has shown true leadership in staying the course, listening to Albertans, offering a positive approach and hope for the future of our province. I know he has Alberta's best interest at heart. I admire his example, and I appreciate his candor, his humor, and his friendship. I'm thankful for the encouragement of other strong Conservative leaders like Rona Ambrose, an outstanding Albertan and a truly inspiring woman. I think often of the words she spoke just over a year ago about the ways that we, as women, all too often tell ourselves we aren't experienced enough or educated enough or accomplished enough to seek office. But she had much to offer in the political process, and at the time, I was a mom of a 4-month-old, and those words resonated with me. I then knew I had a choice. I could sit back and be a spectator of the process, or I could put in the work to ensure that people like me, young women, young parents from everyday working families, were reflected in this assembly and had a voice at this table. Finally, I've made reference to my Saskatchewan roots, and during my time in Saskatchewan, I was proud to have the opportunity to work for a fiscally responsible government who encouraged investment, created jobs, but also listened to people, made critical investments in public services and infrastructure, and supported those most vulnerable in our communities. I was fortunate enough to work for another Premier who went to bat every single day on the national and international stage to promote and advocate for his province. A regular person who chose to take the front steps up the front of the legislature to remind him of the responsibility entrusted to those of us who serve. But beyond the economic or political lessons I learned working for former Premier Brad Wall, the most important was what integrity looks like. That while politics can be a rough sport sometimes, that if you stay close to the people you serve and remember where you came from, that you can be successful in this work and you can do a lot of good in the process. So, Mr. Speaker, to close, in tribute to my own rural roots, in deep gratitude to my family, in service to my constituents, with the steadfast leadership and commitment of our Premier, alongside an incredible team of MLAs, very cognizant of the challenges that lie ahead, but also hopeful in the spirit of renewal that comes with springtime in Alberta, I offer these words from Scripture, from Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. I look forward to the work ahead, Mr. Speaker.